Hello, hello, and welcome again to our series of Pop the Kettle On and Getting to Know You. Um, so today we've got Lesley Levy from Energy, and it's so lovely to have her. We've been very blessed to have Lesley come in and join our live sessions, our live mini reading sessions, and now it's time to get to know her a little bit more. So I'm Andrew from Teapot Teas, the Spiritual Co-op, and I am Andrew Yeo. And welcome, Lesley.
Hi, it's great to be here. 1-to-1, my goodness.
I know. And who would think a couple of weeks ago this would be something that you wouldn't have done?
I know. We were just saying beforehand how me getting over my camera shyness has been a big thing. No problem with speaking and microphones and stuff like that. But the whole camera thing is like,
I know it just puts the head spin a little, doesn't it? Because it just,
ah,
especially seeing yourself on camera for the first
yeah.
time, it's like, oh my goodness, is that what I look like?
It's like, who is that old crone?
Who's that old crowd? So, Lesley, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, how you started in all of this?
In all this, look, I was born in Scotland, so people have always said to me, "Oh, the Scottish, they're very fey," and it was like, yeah, sure. And as a child, I had what my parents called an imaginary friend, and I swear to this day that that was no imaginary friend. I could see her, I could talk to her, I could play with her. Her name was Kathy. I still remember that, and I guess that was my very first thing. But I didn't realise who it was or what it was, because everybody said, "Oh, that's just her imaginary friend." But really, the journey really started when my father passed away. My father passed away fairly quickly of lung cancer when I was 18. And bless his cotton socks, he decided after he passed away he would visit and try and get our attention. So we had a lot of physical phenomena in our house, literally banging on walls in the middle of the night. And I thought it was my mum banging on the wall because she was sick, and I would get up and she'd be sound asleep and there'd be nobody else there. So that got me curious. Still didn't do anything about it for a few months until a couple of my mum's friends who went to a spiritualist church said, "Oh, we went to the church and we've got a message from Jimmy," which was my father's name, saying it's okay, he's watching over Lesley, she's going to be fine. And it was at that point I decided to go to a spiritualist church. And my very first visit was quite dramatic, I have to say. We sat in an open circle to meditate, and I started passing out. And
Oh, really?
as I was passing out, I started speaking, and I started doing, they called me a natural medium when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there, that's how the journey began, exploring everything metaphysical. And all these years later, I'm still exploring.
So, are you a trance medium as well? Because a lot of
I,
trance mediums tend to pass out and then come back to again.
I used to, I think at that first one, the energy of spirit was so strong. The guides that were around me was so strong. It was like, she's here, she's consciously opening up. Let's get in there and get her started. So any mediumship I did after that, whilst I was the modern term is channeling, whilst that was happening, I was aware of what was being said, but it was like I was in the background, if that makes sense.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about before all this spiritual stuff. What did you do for work?
Oh gosh, before all the spiritual stuff, look, I did something very, very basic that everybody did when they left school and didn't want to go to university, much to the disappointment of my mum. But I joined a bank. That's
Oh,
what you
really?
did in those days. Yes, I worked in banking for 5 years. And then after that, I moved into radio and got my first job as a radio writer.
Wow. And how long were you doing radio for?
I was in radio for 10 years. So I'd started out writing radio ads, which was really quite a lot of fun because you could use your imagination. You had all these sound effects. You could create all these things that you couldn't do, out in the real world because you had sound effects that you could use. And then I moved on to be doing voiceovers for commercials because I can do a few little accents. I can do different styles. And then I went in and became a radio announcer and did that for a number of years as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. So when did you start doing all your readings and stuff like that? Your readings and astrology?
Look, I've been in and out of the readings closet for a long, long time. I bought my first tarot deck a few months after I went to the spiritualist church. I was 19 and I bought a good old pre-copyright AGM Mueller Rider-Waite deck, which I still actually have to this day. Stained, tattered, but I will not give it up. It's a gorgeous deck. It's my personal deck now. And so I started off reading for friends on and off. And then because I worked in the media, and then when I was a radio announcer, I went into the tarot closet, shall we say, because I wasn't sure how people would react to me. And so I've been like that throughout my life. It's sort of like, oh, I'm out here, I'm doing it. And then it's like, oh, no. Okay, step back. So it's been a bit like that. So I've been reading professionally on and off, I guess, for, where's the time gone? I guess about sort of 10 years ago, I started reading professionally for a little while, and then I backed off and decided I need to do free readings again. And then really it's only been in the last probably 3 years that I've started reading again and really keeping myself going with it a bit more.
So what style of readings do you do? Tarot is obviously one of them.
Tarot is probably my main form of reading. I also do tea card and tea charm readings. That's something I started about 2 to 3 years ago when I did some courses, which I absolutely love. And they're a great complement to reading with tarot. And I find people become quite intrigued by it. I mean, I'm sure you know yourself with the tea card and tea leaf readings that you do with your wonderful teapot teas. People are so intrigued by it. So yeah, I do that. I use aromatherapy cards. I have my own little deck that I've created, which I haven't made public because it's a bit rough looking at the moment, but I still use it. So it's an affirmation deck using aromatherapy. I don't use oracle cards as much as I used to. It's something that I think I want to get back into a bit more. So, yeah.
Oracle cards are kind of fun. They're depending on the deck you use, it can be quite blunt, or it can have that fayness to it, because tarot is quite different again. It's, there are a lot of rules and regulations, aren't there, to how you read?
It's not so much rules and regulations about how you read. It's a more structured system than an oracle deck. If you want to call something a tarot deck, it must have 78 cards. It must have 22 major arcana, and it must have 56 minor arcana for it to be what I would call a traditional tarot deck. But within that, I use my intuition to read. I am trained, even though I'm self-taught for the most part of my life with tarot. I mean, God, I've had a tarot deck now for, dare I say this out loud, about 42 years. Holy moly. But, I actually did a formal course about 4 years ago, because I'm the eternal student, and it was I have Capricorn rising, as you know, and it's like, well, if I don't get properly validated, I shouldn't be doing it, kind of thing out there in the world. And so I needed that validation. And I find that I use my intuition so much. I don't use keywords. I don't always use standard meanings. It's like anything. You have a goldfish in a goldfish bowl, and you want the goldfish to stay in the goldfish bowl, but it's allowed to swim wherever it wants in there. So that's how I approach tarot reading.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. So you also talk about astrology. You're obviously an astrologer. How long have you been doing that for?
I am quite new to astrology. I've been studying for over a year. I have just been putting myself out there publicly with astrology really only in the last couple of months. I wanted to make sure I had my basics down really well first. make sure I have a good understanding of the planets, because it is quite a complex and technical thing. And we are so much more than our sun sign or our star sign, as some people call it. So it is quite a complex thing. And I think it'll be one of those things with astrology that I'll be a little old lady at 95, hopefully, saying, no, I can't go yet because I haven't learned this about astrology, or I haven't learned this metaphysical thing yet. I've got to stay here and learn this first.
What is it about astrology that really, really draws you in? Because I love astrology. I just find it so, I mean, the profiling of it is so amusing, because, you know, it's uncanny that you can pick out personality traits in someone, or why you would do something, or how things, you know, will change.
I think what I love about astrology is that it reflects the complexity of being a human being. You know, as human beings, we are not two-dimensional or one-dimensional. There are many parts to us. You know, we have our light and our shadow sides. No matter how spiritual we are, we have our shadow side that we work with as well, and we need to acknowledge that. So what I love about astrology is it shows the light and the shadow. It also shows how we can develop. You know, we don't always live our astrology chart. We have free will.
Mm.
And so sometimes when someone says, oh, no, that's not me, I'm not like that, it could be that there is something else in their chart that is more prominent for them at this stage in their life. Or it could be that they're not actually living the potential of what their birth chart is.
Beautiful. It's always, yeah, it always fascinates me. And because I've just read about astrology, I've never done a course about it, and I have a good understanding about it. But when you hear someone else who has studied astrology, it fascinates me. And so, you know, the last couple of times when you've been live with us and you've rattled off a few things, I'm like, oh, right, now I understand what that means. And it kind of puts a perspective to it, doesn't it?
And it's all about the relationship.
Mm.
You know, for example, I am a Sagittarian. My sun sign is Sagittarius. So I am meant to be happy-go-lucky and out there and fun and adventure and exploring. And I do metaphysically do that. But I have
Mm-hmm.
Capricorn rising. So when people first meet me, my rising sign is what people see first. So they see someone who's practical, who's organized, who seems down to earth. But inside, the little Sagittarian's going, woohoo!
See, I'm a Sagittarian with an Aries rising.
So you're a go-getter.
Yeah, so I never stop. I'm like, you
You
know, the
never stop.
Energizer Bunny.
You are the Energizer Bunny. But the thing is, when you stop, you either stop or go. There's no in between.
There's no in between. That's right.
Yeah,
Crash or burn.
yeah.
Crash and burn,
All that
usually.
fire.
All that fire. So tell me, when was it that you actually really decided that you needed to go into that spiritual path and really follow this calling in you?
I don't know if I could pick like a specific date or time. I think it's always been there.
It's always been there.
Even as a child, it has always been there. And other people knew about me being like that before I did. You know, I had my dancing teacher. She said to me when I was 16, she said, Lesley, you're Scottish, you're Fae. Here, read my tea leaves. And I went, okay. Never done it before, didn't know what I was doing, but I read it and she went, oh, wow, really good. That's correct.
That's the luck of the Sagittarian as well, isn't it?
It is. We seem to be in the right place at the right time
The right time.
throughout our lives. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, so what does spirituality mean to you?
Spirituality, look, it's easy to get caught up in, shall we say, how can I put it? It's easy to get caught up in the show of it all. Does that make sense?
Mm.
You know, like when spirit speaks through you, when you see an aura, when you have a physical phenomena, it's really easy to get caught up in all of that. But for me, the true spirituality isn't that external phenomena, it's how I feel inside. I feel that sometimes the most spiritual of people are the ones who maybe don't portray or use psychic abilities in an outward way, if that makes sense.
Mm.
So my own spirituality is part of what I do externally with doing readings and healing and that sort of thing. But my personal spirituality is more my own internal growth. where am I evolving to in this incarnation? What is it that my soul journey is, as opposed to what I'm physically doing in the world? And it's a bit of a push-pull thing for me, because one of the reasons why I jump back into the closet a lot of the time is that I feel like I need to go deep within myself and have that inner communion. And it's hard to do when you're busy doing readings all the time. So yeah, it can be, it's really, yeah, it's a purpose, it's a following, it's a journey. It's something that is inherent as opposed to a conscious decision.
Do you think that being a Sagittarian, that's quite an important thing? Because, you know, Sagittarians are the philosophers. You know, they look at the big pictures of life. And does that make sense? Is that
It
something?
does make sense. I mean, you know, if your sun sign is Sagittarius, then you have a stronger calling in that direction, and also to dive deep. It's not just about, here's an oracle card and it means transformation. Well, what is that transformation? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for this person? How does that affect the world globally, that type of transformation? So it's all that kind of thing. It's deep,
It's deep.
diving deep, diving
It
deep.
is, isn't it? Yeah. And the more that we look at spirituality, the more we get to know ourselves, the deeper we go into it. And I think the key is in spirituality is actually understanding yourself. For
Yeah,
me, you know, for me at least it is.
yeah,
And
absolutely. You know, it is that old thing, know thyself. And that's not, you know, people go, oh, but you know, if I focus on me and what I want, what I need, and what my journey is, I'm being egotistical, I'm being selfish. And my response to that is no, it is not being self-centered. It is being centered in the self. That's different.
yes, yes, definitely, definitely. Now, can you also tell us a little bit about your business and what your inspiration to energy?
Wow, yes. I've had a number of little businesses over the years. Hey, Capricorn rising, Sagittarius, want to get out there and do different things, like doing it in a structured way. But I used to have a business called Bodywise Natural Therapies. And that main purpose of that business was I was a remedial massage therapist and energy healer. And as time went by, I did that for 14 years. And then I wanted to go open up more spiritually to the world again in terms of readings and stuff. And I thought, I don't want to do it under that hat. I don't want to wear that hat. And so I came up with this name called Energy. Now, there are other people out there using the name Energy because, you know, in the universe, a great idea doesn't care who owns it. But I
Mhm.
actually came up with the name myself. So when I saw other people using it, I went, oh, wow, great minds think alike, sort of thing. But energy has a special meaning for me. I wanted something that reflected the inner part of who we are. So our inner world, our spiritual world, because I think a lot of our spiritual world is within rather than without. And then because I was a yoga teacher, um, one of the ways that we show respect and love to a teacher is by calling, like a guru, we would say Guru Ji, J-I. And that's that, you know, loving respect. So the name I came up with for energy was Inner Respect. And if we start with inner respect and follow that journey in our lives, respecting ourselves, honoring ourselves, then it is so much easier to then be able to do that for others. So that's how I came up with the business name.
Wow. And energy is a little bit more of an evolution to just body work now. So energy is more your tarot, astrology, yoga side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's mainly doing tarot readings. Um, Once COVID has passed, perhaps getting back into energy healing. I trained as a crystal healer, but definitely doing the readings, the astrology. I like to bring that into the readings because it helps people understand themselves and understand how they can use their reading in a more practical way as well, knowing a little bit more about how they communicate, how they feel, how they are in the world, how they behave with other people. So if they're asking about a reading for a relationship, and their partner in the relationship, say, is a Gemini and they're a Scorpio, then I can say, look, you know, your Scorpio energy means you're very private and it takes you a while to open up emotionally to other people, whereas your Gemini's in your face going da 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 da. So understanding your partner from that perspective in relation to what's being asked in the tarot can be a really practical way of helping. So that's kind of how I'm basing what I'm doing with readings in the energy business at the moment. Yeah.
This is what I love talking to intuitives, because I have this whole set of questions sitting here, but a lot of times you already answer that, because my next question was, what is your process to creating your business and how it works, and how you do your readings as well. And that is a really good and interesting way, because there are a lot of readers who, especially gypsy style readers who do tea leaf readings, they tend to do a lot of predictions and forecasts. And from what I hear, your type of reading is not so much about the forecast and the prediction type style.
I believe we have free will. I think there are certain things that we come into this life with a blueprint, if you like, that has certain things that, to use the term, fated, and how you get to that is a weaving journey that you have free will to choose. But I do think for most questions that people ask in readings, they have the free will. So, for example, if someone has a tarot reading with me and the outcome is not looking positive, I never say you will do this or you won't do this. I will say the probability, if you continue on this course of action, will be that this will be the result. But if you don't like that result, you have the power to change it now. Unless it's something that's really deep and fated, or perhaps even karmic. So yeah, my readings are more conversational style. The client doesn't have to sit there where I go, I see a tall, dark-haired stranger coming into your life. That's just not my style. So it's a conversation. And I always say to people, the more information, and this is not about cold reading or getting information to regurgitate back to the client, but if they can give me a specific question about what they want to know and understand, then the more specific the cards will provide in terms of an answer.
Yeah. How have you seen your work evolving?
Oh, I think I've become a lot more confident. I've never been confident about my spirituality. I appear confident because that's my nature, to be positive about things, the cup half full instead of half empty. But, for a long time when I was doing readings, I would go home and go, oh my gosh, what a responsibility answering a question for someone. And if they take action on that question and it doesn't turn out the way they want it to, what a responsibility to hold. And so for me, how it's evolved is understanding my responsibility to the people that I read for, to the people that I offer healings to, whatever it is that I'm doing. It's that level of responsibility and respecting and honouring where they're at, regardless of where they're at, if that makes sense.
Definitely. That makes huge sense, because we do, in many ways, we do hold the key to a lot of people's lives, isn't it? Because we have an insight to what's going on in their psyche or spiritual, and spiritually for them as well. And we are responsible. And I think that's where it's important to know when to say things, when not to say things, and what is important for them to work on right now, as opposed to what they need to know in the future.
Yeah. And also too, it's the way in which information is delivered.
Yes.
I could turn around in a reading and say to someone, look, this relationship's not going to work. It doesn't look like it's going to work out unless you do this, this, or this.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be devastating to someone who's madly in love with their partner or with their significant other. So it's how you say it. So I would be saying more along the lines of, look, this is looking a little less positive at the moment. However, if we ask a question around this, we might be able to see how we can move forward for you in a more positive way around this outcome. And so that's, we have a great responsibility as readers.
Yeah, to bring out that clarity and to help people around that area as well.
And it is about offering practical help, not just sort of demonstrating that you're psychic, or demonstrating that you're a medium, or demonstrating that you understand the cards. It's about offering hard, practical things that people can do in their everyday life. Because spirituality for me is taking what we bring into this life, taking those spiritual connections, the lessons, the wisdom that we bring in with us, bringing it down through into our mind and our hearts, and then we deliver that out into the world for our journey in a practical way.
Yeah, that's how I see us as readers as well. We're really a conduit
Yeah.
for the information that some people might not be able to tap into themselves, or they've not found a way to look into their own souls and understand and listen to that inner voice.
And even validating something that, like, I find a lot of people, they kind of already know, and I've said that to people, you already know the answer to this. But what the cards can do, what a tarot reading or an oracle reading, tea leaf, whatever it is, crystals, bones, because you do bones readings, whatever the medium isn't actually important. It's
No.
the message. And I feel that sometimes as readers, we're validating what the client already knows, but hasn't either been able to admit to themselves through lack of confidence, or hasn't actually come to their conscious mind. It's been in their subconscious.
Brilliant. We've got a few people watching here today as well. So if any of you have questions to ask Lesley, just pop it in the comments, and we'll endeavor to answer it. If we can't answer it now, either Lesley or I will come back into the chat and type it in. So if you've got any questions, make sure you put it down.
And I'm the sort of person, if I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know.
Brilliant. So how do you bring spirituality in your everyday life and work?
Well, I'm very eclectic. Gee, what a surprise, a Sagittarian who's eclectic. I am very eclectic. I'm interested in so many things. I don't necessarily do the same rituals. Like, I don't do a full moon ritual every month or a new moon. I don't follow a particular pantheon of deity. It's more following my heart. If my heart says I need to do something, whether it be going for as simple as going for a walk on the beach, or sitting in my garden looking at the full moon at night and doing nothing else, that to me is as effective and as important as a ritual as in getting out all my bells and whistles and creating potions and doing all of that. It is really about what the heart and what the spirit says, and that's how I live my daily life.
Absolutely stunning. So tell me also, what do you think your vision, mission, or message to the world is?
To honor your own inner wisdom, to know that every one of us who comes into this world, we put on different suits. I have the suit of a Sagittarian with everything else attached to it astrologically, as do you, but we all come in with these suits. But at the end of the day, we are all wise souls. And we're not remembering, we're remembering. If you want to think of it in shamanic terms, we're putting ourselves back together in this current incarnation in a new way, so that we can have new experiences and bring that inner wisdom outwards in a new way that we may have not experienced before. And then when we pass on, we take this experience and we add it to the soul collective. Because I believe that we are all one. I believe that when we are incarnated, we need to understand individuation. We need to understand difference. Because when we are soul, we don't have that experience of being different. And so when people talk about we are all one, I believe we are all one spiritually, but while we are incarnated, we are here to experience individuation, individuality, to know what that feels like, and then take the wisdom of that back once we've passed.
Excellent. Now, lastly, what about your life and vocation do you love the most?
Oh gosh, what do I love about my life and vocation the most? It allows me to be me, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It allows me to be who I am, warts and all, because people get this idea that if you're into spirituality or you follow a particular path or you're a reader, that oh, you must be up on that pedestal. You must have already solved all your problems. Let me tell you, that shadow side jumps up and bites you quite hard sometimes. So I feel that for me, it's allowing me to be me, warts and all, allowing me to make mistakes and learn from them, allowing me to have a day where I just don't want to get out of bed, having a day where I do want to get out of bed and explore the world. I think my life and my vocation at this stage where I am, because I'm kind of officially retired now, but I don't have to work 9 to 5 anymore. I can get up in the morning and go to the beach if I want, or binge watch a couple of movies, or I can study my astrology, or I can do readings. It's about allowing the experience, having the freedom to allow experience.
All about choice, isn't it? And living in that authentic truth of whom you are. I think that's what you're trying to say there.
In a roundabout way, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your story, because this is something that a lot of us as healers and intuitives, we never talk about our stories. We never shared that side of us to how we've come to where we are right now. And people are always dying to see, to pick the brain behind, because what a lot of people see when they see an intuitive or a psychic, is this person on a pedestal that can see everything that's going on with your life. But what they don't realize is we're normal people. We still, eat, go to the toilet, walk on the beach, have relationships, all exactly the same.
Yeah.
And we all have our individual stories and journeys that we have gone through to come to where we are.
We have days when we get it really wrong, but that's okay too.
That is so true. That is so true. So let me just check if there's anyone has any messages. No messages there. Someone just said, "Oh, we love your show." Thank you. So thank you, Lesley, for coming on board. And for those of you who are interested, you can find Lesley's profile at the Spiritual Co-op in our directory, as well as your website, which is www.energy.com.au.
Correct.
I got that. And there is also a Facebook page as well. So make sure you go and check that out. And Lesley is part of our beautiful tribe, and she's also part of the virtual market. So have a look and check out this weekend's market and see what she's got to offer, because it's always a little bit exciting. And if you're interested in having a reading or your astrology chart, which I highly recommend, because I tell you, it will give you such an insight to whom you are and what makes you tick. This is something that you can have done. Or do you do transits as well?
I can do transits for events for specific times and dates, yeah.
So there you go. So if you're interested in any of that, make sure you check out either the Spiritual Co-op or energy.com and make a booking with our beautiful friend here, Lesley.
Oh, thank you for having me today. And I have to say, being part of the Spiritual Co-op has been one of the best things. I'm having so much fun. And Andrew, thank you to you for starting this community. It's brilliant.
Well, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. We've really, really enjoyed doing this. It's not been an easy path, but oh my goodness, it has been interesting and a big, steep learning curve. So thank you very much again for coming. From our heart to yours, take care of yourself and the people around you, and join us next week for more getting to know our tribe members. See ya.